On your screen now, the Ariane 44LP for Flight 110. Up top, past 7, a telecommunications satellite for the US and international operator PanAmSat. Hello folks, good to have you with us again at the Guyana Space Center for the 6th Ariane bus launch of 1998, which marks the simultaneous 10th anniversary of PanAmSat's first operational satellite and the maiden flight of the Ariane 4 launcher. Commentary on this event in English is by Suna Abramson. Hi Suna.
Good morning to you, Simon.
And I'm Simon Hayes. Launcher status at 28.5 minutes from liftoff. Time T is green for go. And we move straight into the PanAmSat anniversary launch best of clip.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Opération du satellite and Pan American Satellite 1, third and last spacecraft.
Séparation du satellite PanAmSat.
We have the first half of the deal completed. Muted applause out of respect for the second satellite team, who have, in fact, 4 minutes or so to wait.
Séparation du satellite PanAmSat 4.
Voilà, les applaudissements. La mission d'Ariane est terminée. C'est un succès total.
Séparation PanAmSat 12.
PanAmSat has been released.
There we have it. PanAmSat 3, seeing the stars.
And now the launch vehicle is still working.
Séparation PanAmSat 6.
Okay, we have separation. You can see the reaction of Phil Rubin and Rob Bednarik standing up. Narek?
Pure nostalgia. Here in Mission Control in the Jupiter 2 building, the status panel tells us what, Suna?
That everything is green for go, including the weather. And it looks good for liftoff in a little more than 26 minutes.
Well, we shall have 2 more weather reports which should confirm the situation before the launch window opens. We have a launch window of 1 hour for this flight. Equivalent window times around the world are showing on your screen now. The initial transfer orbit for past 7 is substantially different from the normal GTO pattern. More details on that a little later on. This Ariane Bus live launch broadcast is going out to viewers at 6 sites in France, Washington, D.C., Palo Alto, California, and Greenwich, Connecticut in the USA, Tokyo, Japan, our audience on the Space Center viewing sites and the local public here in French Guiana, and viewers taking the Space Night TV program in Germany.
And the Ariane 44LP version with 2 solid and 2 liquid propellant boosters is the second most powerful in the Ariane 4 family. And it matches more than well the performance requirements for this flight. A total payload liftoff mass is just under 3.9 metric tons. And data for the 3 main stages and the PAP and PAL boosters is on your screen now. This will be the 80th Ariane 4 flight, and the 19th time the 44P version, the same as for PanAmSat 1.
The launcher power pack is topped off by the vehicle equipment bay, the launcher brain, and the fairing which protects the payload during the atmospheric flight phase.
And finally, the passenger on this flight, the PanAmSat 7 spacecraft built by Space Systems Loral for PanAmSat. It will be placed into geostationary orbit over the Indian Ocean.
And Ariane's still out there, that's good. We're going to introduce you to some of the main coordinators of the launch team in a few moments, both here in Mission Control and later in the Launch Control Center.
Yeah, the mission director, Didier Cassé from Arianespace, will have the range operations manager, Pierre Barrière, called also the DDO. And 14 kilometers from here at the Launch Control Center, the Launch Operations Manager, Yves Bondil. Call us the COAL. Lots of acronyms, Simon.
Yes, indeed. We can't avoid them, I'm afraid. The status panel will be our regular companion through to liftoff. All components of the launch system, the launcher itself, the payload and the ground support facilities must be confirmed in the green for go condition to authorize launch. And we'll be back with you shortly after the break. Time check, a little over 20 minutes to scheduled liftoff, and system status is still steady on green. Another component of the command system sooner, the flight control cell.
Yes, this has a supervisory function and only intervening if a major problem arises, for example, when a decision to go ahead with a launch or stop the count is required. It can also involve consultation with the satellite customer if necessary, and it's headed by François Boussita for Flight 110. And now some clips from the launcher campaign.
The launch vehicle elements arrived by ship from Europe after a trip of 11 days. On the first day of the campaign, August 13th, the first stage was unpacked, erected on the launch table, and held in place by 4 clamps. This stage is equipped with 4 Viking engines. The second stage was erected on the following day. This stage, with a single Viking engine, is mated to the first stage by a bolted interface. Uniquely for this campaign, the third stage mate and testing followed immediately. The VB plate was installed. A third stage cover is fitted to protect the equipment. This version of the launcher, a 44LP, has 2 liquid strap-on boosters which are installed in the preparation area. Following mechanical and electrical test, the vehicle was rolled out the 1 kilometer to the launch area on Monday the 31st of August, a journey of 1 hour. The cryogenic arms for fueling the third stage are deployed and connected. The gantry is then rolled into place, allowing access for installation of the 2 solid strap-on boosters.
We've just heard that the penultimate weather report is good, and it's now time to turn to our customers for Flight 110 on PanamSat. We have Luli Saraleki, PanamSat Executive Vice President Sales and Marketing, and alongside her, Robert Bedmarek, PanamSat COO.
And squeezed in between is Daniel Biedermann, the Ariane Space Payload Manager.
I don't know whether he likes the term squeeze, but never mind. And so, appropriately, anyway, to ease the tension, the PanamSat Techno Clip. Folks, we will actually talk to you about PanAmSat later in the program, and that's a promise. But before we show you the clip on the Past 7 campaign, a word sooner perhaps on the stack-up of launcher and satellite teams here in Kourou.
Yes, we're in fact 3 satellite teams and no fewer than 3 fully assembled launch vehicles here.
The spacecraft arrived by Antonov aircraft at Rochambeau on the 10th of August. On arrival in the S1A preparation area, the spacecraft was unpacked, inspected, and installed on its dedicated handling fixture. A fit check with the launch vehicle adapter was performed early in the S1 activities to verify mechanical and electrical interfaces. Transfer to the hazardous processing area S3B took place on the morning of the 25th of August, launch day of V110. Fueling operations were then conducted by personnel wearing protective scape suits. It is also in this S3 area that encapsulation of the spacecraft takes place. This consists of mating to the vehicle adapter, installation in the VEB cone, and fairing closure. The payload composite is then transferred to the launch area, hoisted to the payload platform level, where final mate to the launch vehicle takes place.
A news flash, in particular for those of you who watched the 109 launch at the end of last month. The status of ST1, currently in course of in-orbit acceptance testing, is satisfactory. And we have another look into the Launch Control Center. What actually goes on in here, Sune?
Actually, all launch preparation tasks are conducted and are monitored from the CDL, as it's called. It's adjacent to the assembly dock where the Ariane vehicle is put together and checked out. And the pad is only 1 kilometer up the rail track from there.
So what are they busy at in there just now?
Right now it's already mostly wait and see. And while we all wait, let's have a look at some Ariane 503 campaign pictures.
The launcher stages for Flight 503 were shipped out from Europe on board the MN Toucan for the 11-day trip to Kourou in mid-May. We see the containers being offloaded before starting their short road journey to the dedicated Ariane 5 preparation buildings on the ELA-3 site. The first part of the launcher campaign proper commenced on 17th June with the erection of the cryogenic main stage. This huge core element was hoisted into the vertical position and transferred to the launcher integration building and secured to its supporting arm structures. The solid propellant boosters, again vast by comparison with the PAP boosters used on the 44LP for tonight's flight, and which are partially manufactured and totally assembled here in French Guiana, were transferred in their turn to the integration building. Here we see the boosters being positioned on the mobile launch table alongside the cryogenic main stage, where they're brought up and mated, forming the lower composite of the 503 launcher. The basic assembly phase was completed in 10 working days. The launcher campaign recommenced in the second half of August. The initial period was devoted to the development and testing of erection and integration procedures for the vehicle equipment bay, the electronic pilot's cabin of the launcher. This was followed by equivalent operations for the storable propellant upper stage, which is integrated inside the equipment bay annulus. Here we see the upper stage being lowered into position. The launcher is now undergoing global electronic checkout and testing, and the campaign will continue with a target launch date towards the middle of October. Well, while we were enjoying the movie sooner, you were catching the final weather report before liftoff. What did our Met friends have to tell us?
Oh, only good news, Simon. There's no risk for any adverse weather condition which could cause a delay. In any way, we do have a comfortable 60 minutes launch window tonight.
Well, that's good news. And we shall be coming shortly to our last piece of film, shot only 6 hours ago. The gantry withdrawal process for the final pre-launch preparation of the launcher. This massive structure is moved back off the launcher 1 hour for about 100 meters distance, and then what sooner?
Well, the principal operation after the gantry is rolled back is the fueling of the third stage with its cryogenic propellant, supercooled liquid oxygen and hydrogen.
Why not fuel up with the gantry still over the launcher, though?
Oh, there's no specific advantage. There is also some oxygen-rich atmosphere from the fueling. And we take the gantry away as late as possible when it has to be withdrawn, and we need to know that we can withdraw it properly as well before third stage fueling.
Okay. Fueling, of course, of the first and second stages and the liquid propellant boosters were completed yesterday under manual local control, unlike the cryogenic fueling which was conducted from the CDL. So we move towards the end of our 14.5-hour count and the end of a 2-year launcher build period, and in just 20 minutes odd, Ariane will complete the launch mission. And then it all starts again, like for the launch base.
Very true, Simon. And for PanAmSat 7, those same 20 minutes are the interface between a similar build period and then 15 years plus operational lifetime.
À tous de l'EDO, attention pour le début de la séquence synchronisée de lancement.
And we are just about to enter the final 6 minutes of the count, the synchronized sequence, where
Top
things will
moins 6
change.
minutes.
Status is still green as we enter the synchronized sequence, where we are changing the control of the launcher from human hands to the 2 ground computers in the CDL, the Launch Control Center. The reason for this is very simple. The volume of information to be acquired, sorted and checked, and the command signals to be issued is so great that even with a huge increase in CDL personnel, the job could not be done in so short a time.
So the 2 ground computers take over, controlling all final preparation of the launcher right through to liftoff, with all resources synchronized on a common countdown sequence, therefore the name. One computer handles fluid and propellant configuration tasks and related checkouts, of course. The other deals with the final preparation of electrical systems, initiation of all important commands, startup of servo motors, switch over from ground power to onboard power, and so on. And each computer is jealously cross-checking the performance of the other one.
And there is, of course, a second handover of control from the ground computers to the launcher's onboard computer, the OBC. This happens just before ignition of the Stage 1 engines. It is at this point that the launcher becomes totally autonomous, and its every action is dictated by the flight program. So when is the flight program loaded sooner? Cutting in here, I'm sorry, we have the zoom-in view of the 2 cryogenic third stage fueling arms. This picture is taken with 2 cameras. The 2 pictures being merged to squash out the center of the stage body, as we see in just a couple of seconds. We shall see the completed picture again when the arms finally open just 5 seconds before ignition. Remember that these arms are still, in fact, finishing off the topping up procedure as we talk.
And Simon, as you asked before, the flight program was loaded about 45 minutes ago.
Okay. And you may have noticed earlier some flame seemingly under the launcher at the back. No, this is not a premature ignition. It was, in fact, excess hydrogen gas from the third stage fueling being burnt off via a bubble bath just 100 meters behind the launcher. We mentioned the special transfer orbit for this flight earlier on. We have an apogee at 55,000 kilometers, much further out into space than the normal figure. Why is this sooner?
Well, the performance of the 44LP exceeds the requirement for the 3.9 metric tons of PanAmSat 7 with a substantial margin. And the best way to use this margin is to reduce the amount of satellite fuel needed to circularize the orbit and acquire final orbit position.
So how is this done?
In very simple terms, the excess energy is used to place a satellite into a so-called supersynchronous extra high elliptical orbit. Because of the excess velocity imparted by the launch vehicle, it then requires less fuel to circularize the orbit and obtain the required 36,000 kilometer altitude.
Well, we really need a sketch pad for that one sooner, but never mind. A thought at this time for the satellite teams here in Kourou and in the US. For some, their work has already been completed, and others, it has yet to commence. To all of them, we wish you and your spacecraft good fortune and long life. The satellite's now been on onboard power for 7 or 8 minutes. Are the people in the S1 building here in Kourou and at ground control in Palo Alto watching and waiting like in the CDL, or are they busy?
Oh, they are watching the satellite status continuously, seeing that everything is clear for liftoff. And I think there, as well as here, the tension is mounting in front of the few minutes to go.
Indeed, all ground support for the launcher and downrange tracking, telemetry and so on will of course now be on full alert. With just under 2 minutes of negative count left, the status panel holds its all-green configuration. The launcher will switch to onboard power at 1 minute. Is this a just-in-time choice, Suna?
Yeah, this is done as late as possible to avoid any unnecessary battery discharge. The launcher has no means of recharging, unlike the satellite, and it must be able to communicate with the ground, powering the all on-board electrical systems with a safe power margin until the end of the mission.
And a reminder for latecomers, you've just made it. Stand by for liftoff.
Attention pour H-1 minute.
Of Ariane spaceflight 110 carrying PASSAT 7 for PanAmSat in
Top, moins 1 minute et décompte.
Just 1 minute from now. Status green and counting.
And the launch vehicle is onboard power. Start of first stage, servo motors. The launch vehicle is armed.
Attention pour le décompte final.
And final count.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. Allumage. Décollage.
And we have liftoff. The Ariane 110 is being pushed into the sky.
Tous les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
And the trajectory normal, all parameters are go. The 6 Viking engines and the 2 solid boosters are giving over 500 tons of thrust.
Extinction des propulseurs d'appoint à poudre.
The solid
Paramètres propulsifs normaux, trajectoire normale.
Hello Simon, where did you go?
I've just seen it sooner. After 27 launch commentaries, I've just seen my first liftoff. It was fantastic.
Congratulations. And we've had extinction of the solid boosters.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
And
largage des propulseurs d'appoint à poudre.
There they are. They were jettisoned a bit later to avoid them falling down on the ELS3 pad, actually.
And we're now 1 minute 22 seconds into mission. Altitude 38 kilometers and launch speed nearly half a kilometer per second. We're still tracking on the launch site cameras. We we should switch in due course to the infrared facility on Ile Royale. And radar tracking is from Kourou and Cayenne.
Tous les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
We're getting already a string of announcements from the DDO. These will continue steadily right through to satellite separation. And we have a very clear picture sooner. It's a nice open sky night, or early morning, as we seem to forget.
Extinction des propulseurs d'appoint à ergol liquide.
Burnout of the liquid propellant boosters.
Largage des propulseurs d'appoint.
And you can see the separation of the liquid boosters right there.
And we have our first computer-assisted action replay.
Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
It is a clear night tonight, so we will, without any doubt, at least for the viewers outside, also see the separation of the first and the second stage.
Indeed, and as we now have we've had the trajectory plot on the screen for some time. A word of explanation, because this will be with us right through to, once again,
normaux, trajectoire normale.
Separation of the payload. The curve on the central graph is the theoretical path of
Extinction du premier étage.
We have burnout of the first stage.
Largage du premier étage. Allumage du deuxième étage.
Of first stage and ignition
Les
of the
paramètres
second
propulsifs
stage.
sont normaux.
All on-board parameters are normal. The curve on the graph shows the path of the launcher. The little circle is its theoretical position at any given moment, and its actual position is the little cross inside the circle. On the right of the display, we have a column of data. The three to watch are T for time intermission.
Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
A for altitude and V for launcher velocity. Note that we are already 3.4 kilometers per second. That's going pretty fast. We're somewhere around 12,000 kph.
And Simon, we're going to reach around 10 kilometers per second before the propulsion phase is over.
Satellisation. I think this is a moment to...
Largage de la coiffe.
We have the fairing jettisoned.
And the spot on the fairing is now leaving the satellite PanAmSat 7 to fend for itself.
That is correct. But Spot has a parachute, so he'll be all right. So I think we should explain sooner how the data is obtained for displaying the trajectory plot, and for that matter, for the DDO's announcements.
Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
So trajectory normal, you just heard it there again. There is about 50 of the 500 launch vehicle parameters that are transmitted directly by telemetry to the telemetry site on the Montagne de Pair, not so far from here. Immediately evaluated and then transmitted.
Extinction du deuxième étage.
To
burnout of the second stage.
Séparation du deuxième étage.
Separation second and third.
Allumage du troisième étage.
And ignition of the third stage, which is always a
paramètres propulsifs normaux.
Satisfactory
trajectoire
announcement.
normale.
All on-board parameters strictly nominal, trajectory nominal. Everything is going fine as we speak. So we have had ignition of the third stage and the start of the long final propulsion phase, 12 minutes, having switched over to the cryogenic power system for this purpose. And as we have this double 10th anniversary situation on Flight 110, this is a good opportunity to take a look at the changes which have occurred in this last decade in the space business. We'll look first.
Acquisition par la station télémesure de Natal au Brésil.
And we have acquisition of the launcher by the downrange tracking station in Natal in Brazil. We'll look first at the launcher field, where the changes have been less spectacular than satellite technology development, but nevertheless significant sooner.
That is correct. We've had on the Ariane 4 vehicle, for instance, almost 20% of payload capacity increase. The Ariane 4 in the beginning could lift 4.2 tons, and we're now up above 4.9 tons, actually. And this has been achieved over the years by successive improvements and also getting to know better how the launch vehicle functions, getting more data. And then the other thing which we're going to talk about very soon is the new generation launch vehicles.
La trajectoire est normale.
Above all, the Ariane 5, which we have the 503 launch vehicle here at the base, which is about 6 tons payload capacity, but there is already planned an improvement going via 8 tons up to around 12 tons finally in about 6 years' time.
Well, I'm glad you got into the subject of Ariane 5, because a little earlier we had some film on the 503 launcher campaign, and to take a closer look at the state of progress with this Ariane 5 qualification flight, we're now joined by Bernard Puy-Grenier, Arianespace Mission Director for Flight 503. Hello, Bernard.
Hello.
Good to have you with us. Bernard has been associated with Ariane 5 for a considerable time and had parallel mission director responsibilities for Flight 502. Well, we now have a 503 horizon of about 1 month. I notice your nails are very clean and neat, Bernard, no sign of biting. That may come later, but where are we precisely with the launch campaign at the moment?
At the moment, we have completed the assembly of the launch vehicle. It means that all the stages are assembled together, and we are starting the electrical checks, the general electrical checks.
And do you feel things are moving smoothly towards the latest date announced for 503?
I can say that for the moment we are exactly as the campaign was planned, and we have nothing special to say about the campaign.
And has it been a reasonably smooth ride since 502? There's been a lot of work done, additional improvement work as well as preparing for 503.
Yes, of course, we had a lot of improvement on the launch vehicle itself, of course, and also on the ground. And now we can say that we are entering in the production phase, and we are at the moment performing I can say the first normal launch campaign for the launch vehicle.
Right. And would you like to put an estimate on of course we're extremely optimistic, and we feel sure that everything will go fine on 503. And after that, to take us through to the first real commercial launch, 504, what sort of time scale are we looking at there?
For the moment, 504 is scheduled for the beginning of next year, but I don't know exactly when
it's rather an unfair question, because let's get 503 under our belt first.
Yes, of course, we have to see.
What about the payloads on 503?
About the payload, we have the first one is the Ariane 3 demonstrator. It's a kind of capsule to demonstrate that we have the technology to do a manned flight,
right.
manned flight, and the second one is a dummy, but instrumented dummy with accelerometers and shock meters.
So that will provide
everything.
useful data for the future.
To increase our knowledge about the ambience.
Well, it's been great to have you with us, Bernard. I'm afraid we shall have to continue with our direct launch commentary now, because otherwise Sooner and I won't be asked to come in the cabin again.
Okay.
But before you leave, perhaps you could give us a flight status readout?
Yes, I can say that for the moment the altitude is 227 kilometers, the velocity is 6.6 kilometers per second, and we have roughly 500 seconds to the end of the propulsion of the
Well,
third
that's
stage.
excellent. That's most professional in every way, Bernard.
Thank you.
Like you've been doing it all your life. Would you like to carry on with a solo commentary through to the speeches? And
thank you very much.
No? Some other time, perhaps.
Yes, maybe.
Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard.
Well, continuing our look at the years 1988 to 1989, it's the turn of our customer on Flight 110 to come under the spotlight. The contrast between PAS-1 satellite launched on Ariane 401 and today's payload
Les paramètres propulsifs du lanceur sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
is very substantial soon. Just to pick up there, the announcements from the DDO are still absolutely nominal, absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I can say that the evolution from PanAmSat 1 to PanAmSat 7 of today really illustrates what happened in the satellite business, in the geostationary satellites in particular.
Acquisition par la station télémesure d'Ascension.
The PAS-1 was 1,500 kilograms only. Today we have more than double. What's more significant, I think, is that the power level has gone up immensely. There was but 1.5 kilowatts on the satellites 10 years ago, and now we're talking 10 to 15 kilowatts. The PanAmSat 7 has 11 kilowatts of power. And the same with lifetime. Although for PanAmSat 1, which was a 10-year satellite, Phil Rubin and his guys here succeeded in getting full tanks on board the PanAmSat 1 and are getting 13 years of lifetime. So we will live with the PanAmSat 1 another 2 to 3 years.
For the first one up, that's a pretty impressive figure. We should mention, of course, that PAS-7 is the 12th out of a total of, to date, 14 PanAmSat satellites booked to fly on Ariane.
Yes, and PanAmSat 7 is also going to be positioned in the same, exactly same position as PanAmSat 4. So the first time they have co-located satellite in the PanAmSat.
Right, and we're talking of Indian Ocean, somewhere around there, I think.
And that is also something that's evolved. There were 2 degrees between satellites before, and now they are co-located on the same area.
Just cutting in a second there, we have loss of contact by the Natal station, but of course the Ascension Island is continuing with the tracking task before we have pickup by Libreville on the African coast. In fact, sooner the PanAmSat story provides a pretty clear illustration of the general upturn in satellite mass values and performance.
And also another change is that PanAmSat is, as we've talked about earlier, is the really first global commercial satellite system. And that was achieved in the years between the first PAS-1 and the PAS-4 in 1996. So very rapid development.
Yes, you could say that these 10 years have also seen some very far-reaching changes in the marketplace in terms of the volume of business, company structures, consolidation, in fact, practically every area.
That is correct. If you just look at the number of geosatellites launched per year, in the late 80s there were about 20 per year, and this has increased with about 50% to 30 in 1997. And the demand is expected to be at this level at least for the years to come. And last year, 1997, was the arrival of the LEO constellations for mobile satellite telephony, and that is also requiring additional launchers. It will be hard to keep up with the demand for launches in another 2 to 3 years.
Yes, and of course, while the market has expanded, the number of companies has tended to reduce through mergers and other forms of consolidation.
Particularly, yes, in the commercial geosatellite manufacturers. There are now 3 of them in the United States, and they are both involved in satellite manufacturing and also doing satellite transfer orbit operations and so on. And in Europe, we basically have 2 consortia still there.
Just cutting in a second, we have under 2 minutes burn time left for stage 3.
And Space System Loral continue to talk about the companies. It's one of the better examples as one of the major manufacturers with a very performance satellite bus, which we're launching tonight, the FS 1300. And that's been continuously enhanced over the years. It's 40% increase is expected over the 11 kilowatts of PanamSat 7 today. And a new spacecraft bus called the 2020
Il reste moins de 2 minutes de
is also under
propulsion.
development,
Tous les paramètres sont
which will
normaux et
further
la
increase
trajectoire
the
est
power
normale.
to 20 kilowatts. And that will also have a ion propulsion system, providing a long lifetime. Imagine 20 years, Simon. I wonder if we're still here in 20 years doing this.
We can wonder, can't we? And perhaps to round off our overview of the decade and coming closer to home, there have been a number of considerable enhancements in the launch service package provided by Arianespace, including increased launch rate and frequency and very substantially reduced launch campaign length.
Yet all of this has also happened over the last 10 years. The Arianespace productivity has
Acquisition
increased.
du lanceur par la station télémesure de Libreville au Gabon.
And we have the final pickup
Tous
by
les
the
paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
we have the final pickup from the Libreville ground
Il
station.
reste 60 secondes de propulsion.
We have 60 seconds of burn time left, and all onboard parameters continue to be strictly nominal.
So in these few seconds we've got left until the end of the burn, we can say that Ariane launched about 8 launches a year in the end of the 80s. And that started with the 1988. And now normal is that there's between 10 and 12 launches a year. So another high
Il
increase in
reste
the
30 secondes
productivity.
de propulsion.
30 seconds to go to shutdown of stage 3.
Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Everything totally nominal.
Fin de visibilité ascension. La trajectoire est normale. Extinction du 3e étage.
We have shutdown of stage 3, and we just have one
Début des manœuvres d'orientation du composite.
event left, namely separation of the satellite in about 3 minutes' time.
Simon, we have 9.9 kilometer per second, which is around 0.2 kilometer per second more than normal, and that explains.
That ties in with the 55,000
exactly
super synchronous.
Yeah. So you're learning more and more.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Well, so what happens between now and separation of the satellite? How is the satellite prepared
La
for
manœuvre
this?
d'orientation se déroule normalement.
First of all, the third stage. Now we're using the cold gases in the system, so there is no hot propulsion to orient the launch, the third stage, to put the satellite in its proper position. At the separation, we will have a release of a clamp band, and particularly with PanamSat 7, the separation is done by springs.
La manœuvre d'orientation se poursuit normalement.
The springs are unequal 2 by 2, which gives PanamSat we can call it almost a frisbee separation.
Yes, I think the expression is a good one, because whereas the separation will be normal in that once the clamp band is split and pulled back and caught, held in place by the catches, the springs just gently nudge the spacecraft away, but with this flip of the wrist, give it a twist, and we have spin.
Yes.
La phase d'orientation se poursuit normalement.
The Loral spacecraft that is also combined with this early morning launch, as it's required for the good calibration of their onboard attitude control system called the DIRA. Doing it this way, you get very precise data for the
La
further
manœuvre
in-orbit
d'orientation
activities.
du composite se poursuit normalement.
Well, we might just look ahead a little to see what will happen to the satellite after separation. It will be acquired by the Perth tracking station about 20 minutes after separation, and the solar panels will be deployed within 3 hours, though the actual process of
Séparation Panamsat 7.
And there we have the big news of the evening, separation of our payload, and the Ariane mission is almost complete. You can hear the applause, I'm sure. Many happy faces,
And again, and you can't see it in picture, but Phil Rubin is doing his stripping.
it's coming off. No, it's not coming off.
Even Luli Sarlegi is getting a T-shirt off. Not yet, no. But there is Rob Bednarek. So every time, and this is...
Oh, they've got some good ones there.
Yeah, and they know it, yes.
Do you think we can get copies of those T-shirts afterwards sooner?
I think these are all individual ones, you know.
Well, there's no harm in asking.
And Phil has been doing this for every launch, and it's the first time I've seen the whole team showing their T-shirts, carrying
That's
them
great.
the shirts.
Really is great.
Yeah. And we'll tell welcome to the mission control people in Palo Alto then, that are now going to take over the spacecraft for the in-orbit activities.
In fact, according to Phil Rubin earlier today, the satellite should be operational in about 6 weeks on completion of flight testing and in-orbit acceptance.
Yeah. And a small greeting to Mark Shannon, who left here earlier. We have here together with the Loral team enjoyed the last dollars of his budget.
Before we get through to replays and speeches, perhaps a quick word on the order book situation. The Arianespace order book stands after this successful, and I might add, successful 38th consecutive launch. The order book stands at 39 satellites, following the
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. Allumage. Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Yes, that was good. It looked even better from outside, though, sooner. As I was saying, the order book was increased by 1 only yesterday with the signature of the launch contract for INSAT B, the 6th Indian
10,
satellite.
9,
We have some more
8,
replay.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. Allumage. Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale. Extinction des propulseurs d'appoint à poudre. Paramètres propulsifs normaux, trajectoire normale. Tous les paramètres sont normaux. Largage des propulseurs d'appoint à poudre.
Well, that was when you were doing your solo commentary, wasn't it, Sona?
Yes, it was. So you have to make that a routine from now on.
I would like to think I could. Well, the next step would be to find the means somehow to watch the actual liftoff from closer up.
And do a live commentary.
Yes, well, we just need a little bit of telecommunications to set that up. But the problem would be to get back here into the cabin before my companion, be it you or be it another of our friends, had completed the total commentary.
Yep.
And with a very high degree of accuracy. Satellite and that 7 for our customer today, PanAmSat Corporation. This launch represents the 38th consecutive success of Ariane 4. It was the 6th launch of the year, just 21 days after the previous launch of ST1. This high rate of launch will go on since we need to make 4 more success until the end of this year. And besides, third demonstration flight of Ariane 5 is planned mid-October. So you will easily understand that facing such a heavy workload, I want first of all congratulate all the team for this launch success. The teams of the CAG, the industrial teams all over in Kourou and in Europe, and of course, the Arianespace teams. Thank you for all of you for doing such a great job to meet the customer's requirement. You are integral part of the high quality, flexibility, and availability of the Arianespace service. This allows the company to confirm its leadership in the launch service market. Our customer of today surely appreciates the Arianespace service, since PanAmSat 7 is the 12th satellite PanAmSat Corporation entrusts to Ariane. Our partnership with PanAmSat has gone on for a long time. Today, you know, is the 10th anniversary of the first launch for PanAmSat. You remember perhaps the first launch of Ariane 4 with PanAmSat 1. It was the beginning of the very happy story of PanAmSat. Since then, 11 PanAmSat satellites have been entrusted to Arianespace. And there are still to come, since another launch is planned for the end of the year, and hope many others for next time. This morning, and to come back to PanAmSat 7, I wish that the in-orbit operation foreseen in the coming hours will take place with the same success than the launch, and that the exploitation of PanAmSat 7 will contribute to the realization of PanAmSat targets. Before leaving the floor to Lele Sararegi and Troy Langton, I wish to confirm that today our backlog is still 39 satellites, since we have signed yesterday a new contract for the launch of an Indian satellite, INSAT 3B. And I give you a rendezvous for the next launch, which is planned in the 5th of October with 2 satellites, W2 for Eutelsat and Sirius 3 for the Swedish company NSAP. Thank you. Let's return now.
Françoise Bouzita, Secretary General of Arianespace.
Francois wanted me to do this in French, but we'd be here for about 2 years for me to get about 5 lines out. I'd like to thank Arianespace for a wonderful ride once again. I can't think of a better way to celebrate our 10th anniversary. And I can't wait for Christmas once again, because it's going to be a great end of the year. So I'd like to thank you for that. I'd like to thank all the people here that worked very hard in putting this whole program together, and the people back in PanAmSat and our offices around the world that have worked very hard. and especially the customers that we've already had on Pass 4 and that'll be coming on to Pass 7 to build what we think is going to be a great satellite and a great location. So I'd like to thank everybody for that, and also thank Laurel for the hard work that went into this as well. And we look forward to the coming days and making sure the satellite finds its right home and beginning service. And Francois, I can tell you that that backlog of yours, we hope to be adding to it. So don't worry, you're not stopping there. Thanks again.
Willie Salalegi, PanAmSat Executive Vice President, Sales and Marketing.
Don't go away. I would like to present this to you on behalf of Space Systems Laurel. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to build this satellite for you. I think it will do well in serving you and your customers. Thanks again.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe Ellington, Space Systems Laurel.
Thank you, John.
And for your pleasure, just a little more replay coming up in a few seconds.
Une dernière précision. Je pense qu'il est important de dire que ce lancement.
I would like to specify this launch was performed with absolute perfect accuracy. For the apogee, we are at +2, and at the perigee, we're exactly on intended perigee.
So you see, we get the data back pretty quick.
That's another thing which has improved over 10 years. This is really rapid.
Tous les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale. Extinction des propulseurs d'appoint à poudre. Paramètres propulsifs normaux, trajectoire normale. Tous les paramètres sont normaux. Largage des propulseurs d'appoint à poudre.
Still looks very good. Well,
it does.
We shall be leaving you in a few moments, ladies and gentlemen. The replays bring tonight's event almost to a close. As always, we've been happy to have you with us, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And indeed that you'll join us again on one or more occasions during the launch busy month of October.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu.
One more time.
Allumage. Décollage.
And we have liftoff. The Ariane 110 is being pushed into the sky.
Tous les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
And the trajectory normal, all parameters are go.
Well, we have that permanent record of that fantastic solo, Sino.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, as I was saying, we hope you'll join us in a very short while, on 5th October, in fact, for Flight 111, carrying W2 for Eutelsat and Sirius 5 for NSA-B Sweden. We're just off for a... Well, if you really want a glass of milk and a banana, you have a glass of milk and a banana sooner, but I don't believe you. No, we're off for, no doubt, some quiet little celebration. So with that in mind, this is good night from Kourou from
Sune Abrahamson
and Simon Hayes.